Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you on a frigid Friday in Nashville. And it's only going to get colder, but enjoy it. Enjoy this balmy 40-degree weather while it lasts, because it's going to be in like the 20s next week. But stay warm. Stick with us. We'll warm you up on this frigid Friday.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Willie is in Vancouver, where the Nashville Predators will resume action tonight against the Canucks. Puck drop at 9, pregame at 8, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I will be filling in for Robbie Stanley on the pregame show, so looking forward to that. And this is not how we're going to start the show, but I want to get this question out there because we're going to revisit it over the course of the program. So at 615-737-1025, you can either call us or text us. Monday in the NFL is commonly known as Black Monday. A lot of coaches and general managers get fired on Monday because it's the day after the final game of the regular season. So I want your predictions on what's going to happen with the Titans on Black Monday. Does somebody lose their job? Does nobody lose their job? And you can get as specific as you'd like. It's not just Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan. Is it Nick Holtz, the offensive coordinator? Is it God, why am I blanking on the Colt Anderson? Thank you, the special teams coach. I want to hear from you, 615-737-1025, because I think by the end of the program, we are going to give our predictions as to what happens when we come on the air at 11 o'clock on Monday. We'll see what happens with the Titans. But we did have a college football bowl game yesterday. The rescheduled Sugar Bowl took place yesterday in New Orleans. Notre Dame, 23, Georgia 10. So for those keeping track at home, the updated bracket, Texas and Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl on January 10th, Penn State and Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl on January 9th. Now, here's the question I have for both of you. And Willie, we can start with you. All of the teams that had buys into the quarterfinal round, all conference champions, they all lost. If you want to throw Clemson into this mix, Clemson was the ACC conference champion. They beat SMU, if I recall correctly, in the ACC title game. They were the lowest seeded team in the tournament, but they lost as well. So conference champions went 0-5. But for the 4 teams that had the week off last week or week and a half ago, they all lost in their first bowl games. What do we make of that? Does it mean something, Willie?
Well, I think there's 2 things. Number one, I think conferences, despite all of the windfall financially, are going to look at the risk reward of playing the conference championship game. I think that's one thing. And I think the other one is the seeding of how you fairly seed the bracket is another thing that will get talked about. And the other thing that is tough here, like for Georgia yesterday, Gunnar Stockton, I think, was very limited in what he was able to do with their offense. And Notre Dame, who has a very good defense, took full advantage. Georgia got very impatient at the end of the first half, and it just crushed them. And then the obviously the dagger fully was the kickoff return to open the second half, and that was just the worst formula for Georgia. So the best of the SEC, basically, without their quarterback, was not good enough to win. So that certainly explained one of the conference champions going down. But I think it's pretty obvious that Boise State and, to a degree, Arizona State, who played a whale of a game, they probably were seated higher than they performed during the regular season.
I don't know what it truly says about this year's playoffs that all 4 teams that had to bye, end up losing their first round game, not the first round game, but their first round games. I'm not sure what it says about college football and what it says about how the playoffs format is put together. What I do know is this. Sometimes having a week off can be a blessing because of injury. Sometimes it could be a curse because now you're sitting for 2 weeks and sometimes even longer than that. So I think that's the real part about it. When you get into this mode of playing every week, by typically you want to play a softer schedule because you've been off. Sometimes you jump right back into it and you got a hard fought contested battle within the division. But that's easier to sort of manage because you've played these teams before and they're in your division, so you know how to prepare for them. But when you don't know how to prepare for an opponent, you got 2 weeks off. You think that may help, and sometimes it does. But I think sometimes it hurts as well because now you're not in a flow of playing. This team has been in the flow. They played last week. They're in the rhythm. They're ready to go. And then all of a sudden they play you, who's been sitting off for 2 weeks. It may take you a quarter, 2 quarters to really get in sync with the game. But by then, the game may be damn near out of reach. So beside that, I'm not sure, was it a problem with the seeding? I'm not sure there was, because if you look at it, Arizona State, that was a good game, really good game. And many say Arizona State should have won that game. Oregon was the number 1 seed in the country, and they end up losing to Ohio State. Boise State was a damn good team with the runner-up and a Heisman Trophy winner. Now, did they play a gauntlet of a schedule, possibly like other teams out there? No. But they ran into a very good Penn State team, and Penn State beat them, even though the score was closer than what it seemed at half. It ended up being a 14, 17-point advantage for Penn State. But then you look at the Georgia and Notre Dame situation. These are 2 teams, Georgia and Notre Dame. Georgia just was missing their quarterback. So to me, I don't think there was anything wrong with the 4 teams that had a bye. Because if Georgia has their quarterback, maybe that looks a little bit different. Penn State, Boise State, I want to believe if they played again, it would be a much closer game. Or Boise State may win it. Ohio State, Oregon, I think that would be a much closer game if that game was played over again. I don't think the blowout was indicative of how Oregon is as a team. And then we got what we wanted from the Texas and Arizona game. So I don't see anything wrong with how the format was put together and everything else. I just think sometimes when you have a long layoff, that can help you, as opposed to, you looking at it as, okay, we're getting some guys back, we're getting healthy, and it should help us in the next round. Sometimes it hurts.
So there's going to be plenty of conversation about tweaking the format of the college football playoff for next season. And Seth Emerson of The Athletic had an exclusive interview with SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey on this subject. And according to Emerson, Sankey pointed out that the system was devised before the current wave of conference realignment in a world where the Pac-12 existed as one of 5 power conferences. This was Sankey, quote, "Remember when the format was introduced, we had what was called the Power 5 in the Group of 5. There is not a Power 5. We had looked at history. You never meant pulling seeds from outside the top 10 really into the top 4 in this format. And that's now happened. Those are learning experiences, and that informs adaptation. And we've got a responsibility to have what I would consider is a competitive and fair format." What do you think about that, Willie?
I think it's just going to be talked about. And I agree with Derek. I don't think just because it goes one way one year that you want to scrap everything. But I do think you want to reward the best teams. It comes down to the fundamental question of how much of a reward are you going to give the conference champions? And then how much of a reward is it to have a bye? I do think, by and large, I believe in principle. And I think, Derek, you agree that if you get a bye, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's on you if you can't be sharp and be ready to go. It's not a penalty. But it was interesting to watch the teams that built momentum, right, execute better, like Notre Dame and Penn State and Texas, having played a game did seem to give them a little edge, especially early in games. Now, I don't know what Georgia was thinking at the end of the first half. Like, that's got nothing to do with having a bye, right? Trying to get a little greedy down 6-3 with a young quarterback who was struggling against a really good defense, to roll the dice. They got what they got, and that was on them. I think Georgia's best bet in that game was to play close to the vest and stay close, and hopefully their defense makes a play. Right? Notre Dame wasn't doing anything offensively, but Georgia basically handed them the game at the very end of the first half and the very beginning of the second half. So that's got nothing to do with having a bye, right?
No, it doesn't. I think Georgia's probably sort of the outlier, because even with the bye, they knew they wasn't getting their quarterback back.
Right.
And
right.
even
That
though
was a
the young,
catastrophic
exactly,
injury.
even though the young man had damn near 2 weeks to prepare, if not longer, it's still not Carson Beck. He still doesn't have the experience of a Carson Beck. And they talked about it on the broadcast yesterday.
I believe it was said on the broadcast. I think Sean McDonough said that it was the first time in the college football playoff era that a quarterback made his first career start in a playoff game.
Yeah, so you throw a young guy into a situation like that. You're just hoping that he doesn't do anything in those critical times, not necessarily throughout the game, because there are critical times within the game, even though the game is big as a whole. But there are critical moments in the game that sort of separates one team from the other. Georgia had theirs last night, obviously. Texas against Arizona State, and then Penn State and Boise State. That Oregon and Ohio State was a runner. They ran away with that very early. But every game has its moments, and when Georgia, you don't have your quarterback who's quarterbacked you for the last 2 years, it's hard to do what you want, especially in those critical moments. So, but will they make changes to the college format? I'm pretty sure they will. But I don't think there needs to be these sweeping changes. Maybe some tweaks here and there, and that's what Sankey talked about. Obviously, some tweaks here and there. And them realizing when they set this format that was with a power 5, not a power 4.5 or a power 3.5 or 4, whatever you want to call it. So with that being said, yeah, they're tweaking a little bit more. But I think for the most part, I looked at these games and I thought we had some good games. Obviously, there were blowouts here and there, but I thought these games were good.
I guess my question.
What did
go
you
ahead,
think?
Willie.
We do have to address, like with Georgia especially. It was clear that with Stockton in there, both teams were playing the field position, right? Trying to not take big chances, trying to not to turn the ball over. And Georgia hit the one big play that they had, the 15-yard penalty. Oh man, I felt so bad for that kid. But at the same time, we're about 3 other guys on that sideline that were close to hitting the ref. But obviously, we've never seen anything like that before. But that was Georgia's chance, maybe, to push ahead and maybe get a lead. If they get the lead in that game, maybe they can dictate a little more. Maybe Notre Dame's got to come out of the shell a little bit more. So Georgia just did a lot of things to hurt themselves in that game. But what did you guys think of that play? I was watching the game with no sound at a restaurant, so I wasn't even aware of what had happened until later in the day. But that was completely bizarre. But your heart had to go out for that.
That's
kid.
One of those plays where I think it's like the NFL. What the NFL is more reactive than proactive. And they tend to make changes when something catastrophic happens in the playoffs, not necessarily during the regular season. When something happens in the playoffs, then they tend to make changes.
Like the overtime rules?
Exactly, like the overtime rules. They tend to, be reactive than proactive. And I think the college football, I think that in a situation like this, because this was essentially almost like a off the field penalty that end up affecting the play on the field. I say off the
that
field.
Be a penalty?
And that's what I'm getting to. That should be a warning first. Like, we're going to give you a warning. And again, I've seen this before, and I thought, man, they shouldn't get, especially when you're running down the sidelines and everybody's into the game. If they're not actually on the field, You should be
Yeah,
able
he
to give
wasn't
a
on the field.
warning. Exactly. You should be able to give a warning like, hey, listen, next time we're going to penalize you. Not all of a sudden, like in situations like that, sometimes the coach is not even paying attention and he's excited about a play or whatnot. And the refs running down the field, nobody's paying attention and they run into each other. I don't think that should automatically be a penalty. I think it should be a warning first. And then if it happens again, it's a penalty. It may be that way. I don't know. But to my understanding, you do it once, you get penalized for it.
My question about
You know, there's a famous play, Adam, way back. Do you guys? I don't know if they referred to this during the broadcast or not, but I think it was the Cotton Bowl, way back in 1950 or something, where a guy actually came off the sideline and tackled
the guy. Yeah,
like what he actually tackled the guy in bounds. Now that's a penalty.
Yes,
but
Yeah, that
clipping
might
the
be a
ref a little
penalty.
bit. I don't think that's
no, the ref he ain't in the
That's
play.
what the kid did. I felt so bad for him because he's just excited like everybody else. He's a little bit out where he shouldn't be, but not that far. Like that could happen 100 times, and that's the only time that happens.
my question about the college football playoff and what we might have learned so far. Was this a reality check for the SEC? Dustin in Hopkinsville on our text line said, after the NIL money came into play, the playing field started leveling. Looks to me that the other conferences are getting better. Just think of the SEC teams in the college football playoff and around the college football playoff. Georgia, we talked about losing to Notre Dame. Texas needed 2 overtimes to beat Arizona State. I think Texas is a 5.5-point underdog to Ohio State, which ran Tennessee off the field early in the college football playoff. We ended yesterday's show, or I ended yesterday's show, making fun of Alabama because that the hypothetical Alabama, as Chris Vanini of The Athletic called it. South Carolina was also in the mix. They lost to Illinois. I guess good for Ole Miss beating Duke in whichever bowl game that was. But are we seeing? I mean, the SEC for so long, Derek, has been the conference in college football. Are we seeing, as Dustin from Hopkinsville said, the leveling of the playing field, that the SEC is no longer the clear number one conference in college football?
I know we had who did we have on last week? Why am I forgetting? Athletic college football.
Mitch Light.
Mitch, yeah, we had Mitch Light on 2 weeks ago. And I think I posed this question to Mitch Light because I was looking at the standings and it didn't seem, SEC heavy in a sense. And, I think there may be some leveling, but the facts still remain. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a 2-league college format. That's what it is. This is the Big Ten and the SEC and everybody else. Y'all get in where y'all fit in. That's just the way it is. Now, is there leveling when it comes to the Big Ten and the SEC? Yes, I think there is, because you had the 2 powerhouses from the Big 12 leave the conference. So that kind of degradate. What about the word? I'll say a word that don't make sense. I'll come back.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
The quality of the league has
declined. Yes, the quality of league has declined in the Big 12. Even though they still got Arizona State in, but the quality has declined. Why? Oklahoma, Texas, and some other teams end up leaving the conference. So I don't think the SEC has gotten weaker. I think there's parity, but there's just parity with 2 conferences. We looked at the ACC. Yes, Clemson did have a resurgence, but behind Clemson were those powerhouse teams. We saw Florida State. They completely fell off the map after having such a great season last year. Miami faltered toward the end of the season. So you had other teams. SMU ends up losing in their conference championship to Clemson, who ends up going with, I think, 2 losses or 3. But I don't think there's now parity when it comes to all these conferences. I think it's just parity when it comes to 2 conferences now. That's the Big Ten and the SEC. Now, everybody else, y'all figure out how y'all going to get in. Notre Dame's always going to get in because they're not a part of a conference. As long as they win 11 games and don't lose no more than 2, they will be in the college football playoffs, and they understand it. That's why they're going to stay away. That's why they're going to stay out of conferences. But make no mistake, this is not getting the conferences as a whole isn't isn't on a level playing field. It's just the Big Ten and the SEC. Those two teams are more so of on a leveling playing field than anybody else.
I think everybody thinks it's gravitating that way between Big Ten and SEC long term.
Mhm.
There's a sense, I think, from Greg Sankey that those two conferences are going to, over time, dominate year in and year out. And it's up to the other conferences to prove them wrong.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the college football playoff. Again, my question of the day for all of you, because we're going to revisit this topic throughout the program today. Monday is Black Monday in the NFL. What are your predictions for what the Titans will do on Monday after the regular season is over? Who could they fire? Will they fire anybody? Let us know. 615-737-1025. I'm interested for all of your thoughts. But coming up next, Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports, who joins Robbie and Rexroad every week, said something very interesting about the quarterbacks in the draft and a quarterback on the Titans roster. We'll get to that next. Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at John Bon Jovi's in downtown Nashville this Sunday for the pregame show, the final pregame show. From 9:30 to 11:30 a.m., they will break down the Titans' Week 18 matchup against the Texans and give you the latest updates before the game. The pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon.
All right, let's talk League Company. Predators are back in action tonight. First of back-to-backs, and tonight it's the Vancouver Canucks, who won last night. Kevin Lankinen picks up his 15th win of the year in relief last night of Thatcher Demko. So he likely will be back in there tonight against his former team. We'll have all the coverage for you, and League Company will be part of our sponsorship, as it always is. League Company's been in business since 1944. They have what you need to keep your house going. Got a maintenance problem, got issues with the cold weather coming, the heater's not working properly. All of these things are reasons why you need to keep that number and that website memorized. 615-567-1000. That's 567-1000 or leaguecompany.com. Just always have it in your mind, and if you need them, they're there for you. And also consider the home maintenance plan where you get year-round coverage from League Company. You pay a small monthly fee, you get annual checkups, and then discounts on repairs. LeagueCompany.com, 615-567-1000. Proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Before we get to our next topic, Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. He wants to chime in on the college football playoff conversation. Eric, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, guys. Here's what I think would be a good compromise for the seeding solution, and the conferences still wanting to have their championships. Conference champions are guaranteed no worse than an 8 seed, but are not guaranteed one of the 4 byes if they win their championship. So let's say you have one team who's really good in a championship, but on championship day they get beat by the other team. That team is guaranteed a seed up to 8, but the conference champion could then still be seeded higher if they were the better team. Let me know what you think about that.
Thanks, Eric. Willie, what do you think about that idea?
It's not a bad idea. There's so many ideas being thrown around there. For example, the other big dynamic going on while running parallel to all of this is the craziness of the portal, right? That's happening to teams that are in the playoffs, where players on teams that are in the playoffs are thinking, do I stay with my team? I'm not playing very much, but I could get in there. I'm a backup. I want to stay with my team. But at the same time, all these other opportunities are happening while this is going on. Penn State's backup quarterback actually left the team, and he was a guy that they used pretty much every game, right? He had a role on the team, but he left. So you've got all these coaches throwing out all ideas like this. It's very, very complicated, and it's going to take years, I think, to sort itself out. I'd have to look at it closer, what the caller just pointed out there, but I do think that they are going to end up changing the way the seeds happen. That would predict that something like that is going to happen for next year.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have something for the first time, you're going to go back and you're going to re-examine it and see how you can do it better, how you can do it more efficient. And the college football is no different from anything else. You roll it out the first year, hoping that you have majority of the kinks worked out, knowing that all of them will not be. And you let it play out, and then you get the feedback, and then you go in and you make a few more changes. That's what I believe they're going to do heading into next year. Not any sweeping changes, but I think there'll be a few little amendments to the college football playoffs.
And Adam, one thing that a lot of coaches would like to see, and this, I don't know how this will figure out, this would work with the seeding part of it, but they would like ideally for the championships to be right around now. In the first week of January, that doesn't leak into the second semester, so you can keep the season to one semester. So to do that, you would have to eliminate the conference championship games altogether and start the bracket earlier.
They're not doing that. They're not getting rid of those conference championship games. That's too much money.
I know, but for the teams and the players' sanity, it might be better to do it that way. We'll see.
What's better and what's profitable is two different things.
Exactly.
That is very true. So earlier this week, actually, I believe it was yesterday, to be specific, Charles Robinson was on Robbie and Rexroad, Yahoo Sports NFL reporter. He's on every week. Great segment, very insightful. And he had an interesting comment about the situation that the Titans find themselves in right now. Because as we know, as of now, they are scheduled to pick second in the NFL draft. And later in the show, we'll get into some of the scenarios and the rooting guides for this weekend, because there are plenty of options at play, not only for the Titans, but the teams around them fighting for that number one spot. But he was talking about Will Levis in comparison to the two top quarterbacks in this draft, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. This is what Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports said on Robbie and Rexroad yesterday.
You're starting to look at, some of these teams that I think thought, hey, we're headed for a situation. We're definitely going to be looking at QB1 or QB2. Now they're further down and there's more involved. And now the Titans are injected into it. What's the plan? Is Levis the plan? No, he's probably. Here's the thing about Levis. It's crazy. Man, fans are not going to want to hear this. But if you want to talk about straight up just talent, like what he brings to the table talent-wise, and then, the size factor. Levis is more talented than both these players. I'm sorry. It's just a reality. He's got a better arm. He's got a better NFL frame. I think frankly, honestly, even with Cam Ward, I think he's pretty close to being a better athlete than Cam Ward. So you are where you are with Levis, and then you're potentially looking at least from an athletic profile and just the skill and ability, raw skill and ability, not talking about like coached and refined. I think Levis is probably a better player when you stack it all up, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's the right choice between, picking Will Levis or Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders at this point.
That was Charles Robinson on Robbie and Rex Road yesterday. And I do like that Charles said, man, fans are not going to like this. And I'm sure they're not when they hear that. But Derek, you, me, and David were talking about this during the break when we were talking about this discussion. Charles Robinson brings up the physical attributes of Will Levis. And here's the point I made, and I think Willie will get a kick out of this as well. If some movie studio was doing a reboot of the movie Varsity Blues, we've all seen the movie Varsity Blues, right? Great football movie that came out in the late 90s. If someone was doing a reboot,
great, I don't know, but entertaining, yes.
So
pretty good.
It's entertaining. It's got its moments.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
who doesn't like Moxon?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Jonathan Moxon, who is the quarterback in this movie, played by James Vanderbeek. If a movie studio was doing a reboot of Varsity Blues and they put out a casting call for a quarterback type, Will Levis is straight out of Quarterback Central casting. He's tall, he's buff, he's handsome. He looks like the quarterback on a television show about a football team or a movie about a football team. The physical attributes are there with Will Levis. But Derek, you can speak to this better than anybody, at least in this room, that talent isn't just about those physical attributes. We know that Will Levis has a strong arm, but he certainly doesn't have pocket presence. His decision-making is suspect at best. That's part of talent. So I haven't watched Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward enough to compare them. But when I heard Charles Robinson say that, my thought was, well, yeah, sure. In the physical attributes department, Will Levis may be more talented. But as we all know, more goes into that being a good quarterback.
Yeah. Listen, I understand what Charles is saying. And if that is indeed the case, because I think people, when you say something, it's that shock factor, and everybody just looks at it for what it is and not like look deeper into actually, what he's saying. Listen, there in the history of this league, there has been quarterbacks that have been, from a physique standpoint, the number one pick across the board, no matter what. If you just stood them next to every quarterback that they were pitted against in regards to how things are going to shake out in the draft, I'm sure there was a quarterback that was head and shoulders above everybody else in regards to the looks. And that's Will Levis. He's head and shoulders above everyone else. When you look at him, the physique, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", whatever it is, 225, 230, strong rocket arm. He's physical when he runs the football. He can stand in the pocket. Yeah, I will take all of that. I understand that. Those are great attributes to have. And Will Levis, if you compared him not just to the quarterbacks that are in this year's draft, but to the quarterbacks that have been in the draft the last 10 years. Don't just go back to last year, the last 10 years. Will Levis would probably, I'm sure, based upon physique alone and attributes alone, he would be a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the last 10 years. Will Levis would be. But the truth about it is he's not. And it has nothing to do with those attributes that Charles Robinson gave to us, because they are great. Big, physical, strong arm, can throw it through, a hurricane if he had to. 2 of them, matter of fact. but he doesn't have the one or two things that is going to cause him to be successful.
You know what quarterback I just thought of as a quarterback that had all the physical tools but wasn't able to put it together? Jamarcus
Exactly.
Russell.
Jamarcus Russell was
Jamarcus
another one.
Russell.
He was
Oh,
one that
there's a ton of them.
there's a
You
ton
could go
of 'em.
back
He was
So-
the first guy that
Exactly.
popped in my head.
there's a ton of them. Ryan Leaf was another guy, had all the physical attributes. If you were talking about a number one pick, Ryan Leaf was that guy. 6'6", 230, can throw it through anything, and he can move around in the pocket. But what happened? The other kid, the Manning kid, wasn't as physical, didn't have the physique as a Ryan Leaf. And what happened? That guy ended up winning Super Bowls, ended up being a Pro Bowler, and ended up being a Hall of Famer. Why? Because he had it in between the ears consistently. That's what Will Levis hasn't shown, that consistently he can be a winning quarterback. So damn everything Charles Robinson said in regards to his attributes. He's right, yeah. But damn that. If it was based upon attributes alone, there'd be a lot of other guys in the league that are not in the league. But it's not
Right.
just about your attributes. It's about consistently showing it week in and week out. And especially at the quarterback position, you got to be able to show that you can lead and you can make those routine plays. And every once in a while, when you need to make that great play, whether it be scrambling or throwing the football, i.e. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, you can do it. Joe Burrow, you do it. Will Levis can't do it. He has the brawn, but he doesn't have anything else where he hasn't shown yet to put it all together.
Okay, so let's take the other part of this discussion though, because the other part is going forward, the real situation. Because I think we all agree, 100%, that Levis is the classic. I think Adam, your
Exactly.
analogy is perfect. But now here's the question on Sanders and all of the other quarterbacks that you would consider for the next quarterback if you're looking, and the Titans could well be in that position to draft one of them. I don't want to discount what you're saying at all, Derek, but it does give you certain advantages that that guys who are less gifted physically have to overcome. So the question now is, you really have to do the scouting on Sanders and Ward and all of the other guys you're going to consider for that high of a pick. And do they have that special trait? Like let's take in baseball. Like you could line up 1,000 pitchers that were more talented, that look more powerful, that throw harder, et cetera, have better stuff than somebody like Sonny Gray, who doesn't fit the profile, right? But Sonny Gray has that in his DNA, that competitive gene, that he's overcome it with all of the other skills that you have to have. So is Shedeur Sanders that guy? Is Cam Ward that guy? Because we definitely see with Bryce Young that all the things they said physically that would keep him, that would make it tough for him, have made it tough on him, right? Even Kyler Murray, who was a complete outlier, right? He has overcome it to a degree, but he hasn't been the superstar franchise quarterback, right? He's fallen short of that, even though he's a good, solid starter in the league. So there's so many ways it can go on the spectrum. So I think Charles Robinson's point should be that if a guy isn't worthy of a top 2 or 3 pick for all of the reasons, then you got to really consider, as badly as you need a quarterback, whether you want to take one of those guys. Because
But we're not
for
talking
one
about
reason or
two
another, so many of them
pipsqueaks
fall
here.
short.
We're not talking about two pipsqueaks here in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. We're not talking about guys that are, below the average height of a quarterback. We're not talking about guys that can't throw the ball down the field. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders can throw the ball down the field. Both of them are 6'1", 6'2". They have the physical physique to play the position. So, here's the problem that we have sometimes.
Hey, Derek, hold that thought. I want you to hold that thought.
Okay, you're lucky because I was about to get into it.
Okay, hold that thought. Save it up. Get it all bubbled up over the break, and we'll get to it right after this. Willie Donnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. A reminder at 12:30. It's Friday, so it's Ask D. Mace. So if you've got questions for Derek, you can start texting them in now at 615-737-1025. You can also call in ahead of the 12:30 segment. Ask D. Mace. But Derek,
I hear smoldering. Smoldering. It's like
it kind of
feel
died
like
down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
it didn't.
Hey, D-Base,
No.
before you go
Yes.
off, I just want you to know I'm not saying that Sanders or Ward are not those guys.
Yes.
I'm just presenting that you do have to have the whole package.
No,
because, like you have to be able to make up for it. So tell me because I am not a talent evaluator.
Mhm.
I'm going to wait for all of the evaluation to start because there's going to be a ton between now and the time you actually have to decide to make these picks. The discussion is going to be crazy about these guys, like it is every year. So give me your thoughts on these two guys because that's what it's about.
Yeah, it is. And listen, when you compare Will Levis to Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, to me, it's not even close, honestly, because I don't look at it just from a physicality standpoint. It's not close. Their college careers told me it wasn't close. What I saw on the field as far as the play told me it wasn't close. These guys, to me, from a play standpoint, not physique standpoint, from a play standpoint, I think they are ahead of Will Levis. And that is alarming because Will Levis is 2 years older than these individuals, maybe 3. He's played in pro style offenses, meaning Will Levis. And even with 2 years of NFL play, he still hasn't, if you put him back in the draft based upon what he's learned in the NFL, if you put him back in the draft, he still wouldn't be a first round pick.
Shedeur Sanders will turn 23 in February, and Cam Ward will turn 23 in May.
So you got 2 guys, and I think Will Levis came out of school when he was 24? 23, 24. Yeah.
Will Levis will be 26 in June.
26. So he's been in the NFL 26. Hey, damn, you got guys on damn near on their second contracts. Are on their second contracts, heading to their third.
J.C. Latham might be on the second contract when he's 25.
Exactly, absolutely. So when you look at least when I look at these quarterbacks, and I've watched a lot of Shedeur Sanders, and I've watched Cam Ward. To me, when I look at Shedeur Sanders, I think he embodies everything that this generation NFL quarterback is. He can get outside the pocket. He can scramble. He's not looking to run. He's looking to extend plays. And then, throw the ball down the field once he extend that play. He reads defenses very well. He's tough. He doesn't get rattled. A guy, I swear, Shedeur Sanders probably got sacked about 150 times in the last 2 seasons. And
He's been under a lot of pressure.
Exactly.
There is constant pressure as you watch him.
And yet and still, he gets back in the huddle. He gets underneath center, not technically get underneath center, but he's behind center. And he gets the offense and he runs the plays over and over again. And he's successful more times than not. The distribution of the football is excellent. I don't know what more people want to see from Shedeur Sanders that they haven't already saw. He doesn't have the powerful, strong arm. It was never a thing with Shedeur Sanders to have this Will Levis type arm. But he has the other things that you talk about that quarterbacks need, the intangible things, the awareness in the pocket, things like that Will Levis, even after 2 years, you still don't have pocket awareness the way you need to have it. So you're telling me that Will Levis, without any true pocket awareness, is better than the 2 quarterbacks that are coming out? From a physical standpoint, yeah. But anything beyond that, I'm not taking Will Levis over these 2 guys because at least one of the guys, Shedeur Sanders, has shown me the last 2 or 3 years that he is a much better quarterback than Will Levis. He is a quarterback that you can start your franchise with. But just like any other quarterback, you got to surround him with players. You just can't throw a quarterback out there and say, hey, listen, make it work. No, you got to surround them with players. They've done it across the board. Any quarterback that has had success, that have been drafted early, they've had weapons around them. Bryce Young struggled. Why? He didn't have weapons around him. He's better this year than he was last year, but he had no weapons around him. You got Jaden Daniels to come in. Right away, he has a top 10 receiver in McLaurin, and he has other weapons around him. So, and then you look at CJ Stroud. He got weapons around him. When you draft a quarterback, and maybe that's some of Will Levis's fault. He doesn't have that marquee playmaker. He has a playmaker in Calvin Ridley. They started to find their groove a little bit, but then he ends up getting benched because he's played so bad. But if you're going to put a young quarterback underneath center, you better have him some weapons on the outside. But Will Levis hasn't shown me, even with the weapons, he hasn't shown me in the last year and a half, almost 2 years, that if I was to put him in the draft again, that I would draft him over at least Shedeur Sanders. I wouldn't do it. And I'm not sure if there's any scout out there that would do it based upon what you've seen from Will Levis. So again, we can play this physicality, attributes game. We can play it all day. If that was the case, then Travis Hunter would be the best player in the draft, and Genty would not be the best player, would not be a first-round talent if you're basing it upon attributes, big, strong, and out fast. No, he wouldn't be, but he's a football player, meaning the running back out of Boise State. He's just a football player. The kid out of Arizona State, just a football player. Do we have all the big attributes? No. Does he run a 4.2, 4.1? No. But
he does vomit profusely.
Yeah, he does. That may be a superpower.
That's a physical attribute.
Exactly.
Vomiting profusely.
Again, there comes a point where I think the physical has to stop, and then everything else begins. When does the physical stop with Will Levis in regards to what everybody's talking about? And when does the other stuff begin? I would dare to say the other stuff hasn't begun because he hasn't shown it. He's shown the physical part. Yeah, he could take a big hit. Yeah, he could stand in the pocket. But can he do those other things that are going to win you games? I've seen Shedeur Sanders do it. I haven't seen Will Levis do it consistently, even on the NFL level in the last 2 years.
But D-Mace, you would admit there's a lot of great college quarterbacks that we had a lot of fun watching in college. Mm-hmm. That seemed to have that special trait, right? But it didn't translate to the NFL for whatever reason.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of those guys too. That's the only thing I'm trying to point out. And Sanders, he's such a unique guy. He is so much fun to watch, and he's had to improvise so much because of what you're saying. His protection breaks down so much, and that's just not how it's going to. The game in the NFL is a different game. You can't survive like he has doing it that way in the NFL. He's going to have to be that's going to serve him well because he's going to be experienced in facing pressure. Whereas, think of a guy like Matt Leinart who played with a great team around him. He probably never faced that kind of pressure, and then it didn't work for him in the NFL. But at the same time, he's going to have to do it. The formula is going to be different when he's in the NFL.
Yeah, the formula will be different, but what you got to understand is this. When you're looking at the two quarterbacks, you're looking at the physique. Obviously, Will Levis wins that every day, all day. But that's not why I'm getting you as a quarterback. I'm not getting you for your physique. Exactly. I'm getting you for, can you win us games? Can you see the field the way you need to see the field? Can you lead men? And it seems like Shedeur Sanders has been able to do that wherever he has been. He's learned the pro game from pro coaches. That staff in Colorado are basically pro guys, with Shermer, the offensive coordinator, being a former pro NFL head coach and a longtime coordinator. So the terminology, you're getting NFL terminology. The way you see the game, you're getting it from an NFL perspective, not a college football perspective. I'm not sure what more people need to see from Shedeur Sanders. It seems like people want to dislike him because of his dad. You strip off the name Sanders and put Mason or Johnson or Adams on the back, everybody's raving about him. because he's doing the things necessary at that position that you need. He plays winning football. But because his last name is Sanders, all of a sudden now there's a issue. Take the name off the back of the jersey, slap another name on it, and see then how did they reevaluate that quarterback.
615-737-1025. We'll continue this conversation on the other side. Also, as I said, I want to hear from all of you at 615-737-1025. I want your Black Monday predictions for the Titans. What do we see from the Titans on Monday? Does someone lose their job? Does no one lose their job? Who specifically loses their job? I would love to get a pulse of the fan base, and we will discuss this throughout the program at 615-737-1025. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025-1063, The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. I'm taking your thoughts all show long on your predictions for Black Monday as it relates to the Tennessee Titans. Do we see any major changes We will discuss that throughout the show. But Adam in Portland is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. He wants to talk Shedeur Sanders. Adam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to add, he's got no big marquee wins. Colorado in the past 2 years hasn't beat a top 25 team. They've got no wins against teams over 500. To say he's a good quarterback and makes the throws is fine, but to call him a winner, I just don't think is right.
Thanks, Adam. What
Hey,
do you
Adam,
think?
where was this program at before he and his dad? Yeah, huh?
Adam's gone.
Oh no! I'm just saying this is like a rhetorical question. Yeah,
Okay.
where was this Colorado
Before
team
he got there,
before? Let's just say that before Shedeur Sanders became the quarterback of the Colorado Buffaloes. We're not talking about the old days when they won a national championship. You know, when Rashawn Salam was there and all those guys, Westbrook and those. We're not talking about those years. We're talking about the very lean years as it has been for the last decade or so. Where were they before Shedeur Sanders actually stepped on campus? I'm going to answer that question for you. They didn't win nothing. Literally, they didn't win anything. The minute he comes into that conference along with his dad, Deion Sanders, and some other players, mainly Travis Hunter as well, this team, they improve each and every year. Coach Sanders, his son, Travis Hunter, they're there. They improve dramatically, not just on the field, but also in admissions. Why? Because of those two people or those three individuals. So to me, regardless of who they played some tough. They lost 3 games this year. Well, if you count the bowl game, you figure 4. They lost 3 games this year. Okay, you can't sit here and say it was because of Shedeur Sanders that they lost. Hell, they can't block for him half the time, and he's escaping and eluding blockers. Pass rushers more times than he's not. And then he's finding guys down the field to throw the football to. He's buying time within the pocket. He's playing winning football. That's what I should have said. I am sorry for the lack of communication in regards to that. He plays winning football, but just because you play winning football doesn't mean you're always going to win. So let me rephrase that. Shedeur Sanders has played since I've watched him, going back to Jackson State, and now he's played winning football 90-something% of the time. That's just who he is. That's basically the guys that have been drafted in the first round or the top 3 or 4 in the last 10 years. Not to say they haven't lost, but CJ Stroud, even when they lost, even when they lost last year or 2 years ago in college, he played winning football. Bryce Young, whenever they lost, he played winning football. Look at these quarterbacks. They play winning football, but it doesn't necessarily mean their team is going to win. Shedeur Sanders, ever since I've watched him, he's played winning football. I don't know why people can't get that through their heads. Like, the kid is a good player. He's worthy of a first-round pick.
right? I think there's also the other side where you look at a guy who had all of these wins in college, right? AJ McCarron. Like there's a lot of guys who played for powerful programs that did win and have great wins over top 25 teams and, championships. But that's not always what translates to the NFL. That's the mystery. That's why we spend so many hours debating on who is going to translate, because there is no one formula that works.
And you put Shedeur Sanders behind Georgia's offensive line,
absolutely.
not the one last night, but the one prior to that. He's a winning quarterback.
Yeah,
100%
I
of
would
the
agree
time.
with that. I would agree with that. And I think a little bit of Jay Cutler when I watched Shedeur Sanders, only in that Jay Cutler had so little surrounding him. He was constantly under pressure. He was getting hammered, right? But you could see the flashes of greatness and how he elevated everybody. He did get some big wins, but he never got Vanderbilt to a bowl game. So if you just went on wins, then you would say, well, hey, why would you take Jay Cutler over Matt Leinart? But Jay Cutler was a way better NFL quarterback than Matt Leinart, as it turned out, right? Because like you're saying, you can't always measure in just wins. There's so many other variables that are going into it.
So we'll see what happens if the Titans have the opportunity to draft Shedeur Sanders. They could. Right now, they are slated to have the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, right behind the New England Patriots. And we'll talk in the next hour about the number one pick scenarios based on the action around the league on Saturday and Sunday. But the question a lot of Titans fans want to know is, who is going to be picking Shedeur Sanders possibly with that number 2 pick? Will it be Ran Carthon? Will it be somebody else? And the lines have been drawn, I feel like, on this station. Willie and Derek, you both believe, and please correct me if I'm misrepresenting your comments, you both believe that Ran Carthon deserves at least one more year. Now, if things go awry next season, they might need to make a change. But you both believe that Ran Carthon should return as Titans general manager next year, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We know where Jared stands on this. He's been abundantly clear about this since the beginning. Robbie Stanley, I believe, Chase McCabe, Big Joe Dubin, they are on the side of making a change at GM. I'm not sure where Rexroad stands on things. I haven't made my opinion. I'm still thinking about it. Maybe by the end of the show, I'll make a declaration one way or the other.
Well, you better decide quick. It's honest.
I know I've got less than 2 hours. I've got less than 2 hours.
Can I just make this declaration here while we're sitting there going, should they change? Should they not? If they were to change, all of the groundwork that has been laid, you're completely scrapping, and you don't know who's going to be next. You're bringing in a whole new group of people who have to get ready for a draft that is in just a few months. That puts them behind the 8 ball in a big way, in my opinion. You've got this team of people that you entrusted not very long ago at all, that's really only had one draft as a group. So that is my argument. You've got this whole system that you took pride in telling everybody that this is the way to go. The first draft wasn't that bad, right? It's not like they just had an awful draft. I think there's encouraging things about this draft to some degree. It's not a bad draft. It could have been better, but it certainly wasn't, terrible by any stretch. So this whole thing just changed the cards. Like, we're not playing card sharks where you just get another card. Who are the new people? Who are these people you want to put in charge? How long
they don't know
take to go get these people? I mean, yeah,
they don't know.
Well, because Jared is the what's the word I'm looking for here? Who's the person that leads a parade? What's the official name for that? I don't remember.
The ringleader.
Well, that's a circus,
Yeah,
but we'll go with the ringleader.
Let's go with it.
Ringleader is perfect because Stillman and Company can be a circus sometimes. Jared is the ringleader of the anti-Ran crew. He has mentioned multiple general managers with experience, such as Rick Spielman or Thomas Dimitrov or Mark Dominic. And sometimes I like to give him some crap for that because he likes those guys. I think he's had him on his Sirius XM show. He's had him on on his own program, but clearly,
but he acts like those guys have never screwed up. Before. Those guys are perfect.
Well,
those guys have been fine, but they have been in and out of the jobs just like everybody. I mean, there is no perfect guy that's just going to come in and be the magical solution to everything. But the solution can't always be this guy. It's not going right now, so let's change.
Well, Derek,
that to me is why you've got to try to stay the course for another year. In another year, we'll talk about it. But they just started this regime. They inherited so many of the problems.
Yes. The other thing as well that we talk about, history would suggest that if the Titans make a change, it's probably going to be someone getting their first crack at being a general manager, right? We talk about this a lot. There aren't a lot of retreads in the NFL when it comes to general managers. Willie, you know this as well as I do. In the NHL, the same 5 or 6 guys get cycled through all of those positions. In the NFL, correct me if I'm wrong, that is not as prevalent. Oftentimes, it's a situation like Ran Carthon. Ran Carthon gets his first opportunity. John Robinson got his first opportunity. So perhaps there is a football person, quote unquote, who is part of a front office, an experienced football person. But Derek, wouldn't you think that if the Titans make a change at general manager, it's more than likely or more likely to be someone getting their first shot at it versus someone who has experience in that position?
It seems like that's the way that NFL teams choose to go with a first time guy, an up and coming young guy. Very seldom do you see a retread on GMs, and not to say that there shouldn't be. I think there are some GMs that have done good jobs, and like Willie said, every GM doesn't hit. We get that, and that goes for Rand Carthon as well. But it seems like that, after a year, it's like, even though GMs more than likely they're going to have a failing success rate, because that's just the job. The job is meant to have a failing success rate. You just hope that you hit on 2 or 3 of them, mainly the quarterback.
Exactly, the quarterback.
If you hit on a quarterback, you're good.
Had a good year, then we would look at this regime as, hey, okay, they're moving in the right direction. It's so much has been influenced by the fact that Will Levis has completely crashed and burned, which was not something you could see coming. Did anybody think he would be this bad?
Nobody
No.
thought he would be this bad. And for those that say, yeah, they're lying to themselves. The season started. Now, you may not have agreed with Amy when she said young and exciting.
Right. There was plenty of skepticism about
Absolutely.
Will Levis's ability to be a starting quarterback,
question.
but nobody
Mhm.
could have predicted how I was about to combine terrible and awful to Toffel.
Yeah, say it.
How
Toffel.
Toffel this quarterback was going to be this season. But so anyway, please continue.
But it happened. And to me, every GM, and listen, I can ask Jared, and it wouldn't be fair to Jared nor Rex nor anyone else personality on this airwaves to say, well, who would you name as GM? Because 9 times out of 10, nobody's sitting there going home and said, okay, let me scout all these GMs, their pros and their cons, and put them on, and then these are the guys that I'm going to push for. Nobody's doing that. But you usually what comes out of your head is guys that you're familiar with. Like Jared, he brings up those 2 or 3 names. Why? Because he's familiar with those guys. You look at Rick Spielman now. Rick Spielman is the same person that drafted Ponder, wasn't it? He was the same person that drafted Ponder, the quarterback.
Rick Spielman.
Yeah, I believe he was the same guy that drafted Ponder in the top. I don't know. What was Ponder, a top 10
top
pick?
10.
That is correct.
Yeah, so
Spielman did draft Christian Ponder.
exactly. So you drafted Christian Ponder as your quarterback. And how did that go? Yeah, as a matter of fact, you don't even need to answer it. So every GM has their warts, whether it's 5 guys, 10 guys, 15 guys. If you stay on the job long enough, you're going to have more misses than hits. Now, listen, Rand and the regime, yes, they need to start getting some hits, at least 1, possibly 2 in the next draft coming up. But they need to also hit when they go into free agency as well. Be smart in the guys that you bring in, not necessarily for a shock and awe factor, but bring guys in that fits the culture that you're establishing. They may not be the A1 guys, but if they fit your culture, they play within the parameters that you want to play within, you will have a winning team. You don't need to have marquee guys. You need to have the quarterback, but you don't need to have marquee guys across the board. Look at New England. Outside of probably 1 or 2 people, can y'all name me superstars on a New England team that won Super Bowls? No, stop it. You can't even do it. Randy Moss, they didn't win a Super Bowl, okay, with that team. There was no flat-out superstars. Corey Dillon was a superstar, but he was toward the end of his career when he won a Super Bowl with New England. So the one thing you do need is a quarterback, but you just need people that are going to fit inside your system. Bill Belichick said this on McAfee. He said, listen, when you bring in guys, you got to bring in guys that fit your system, that fit your culture. He talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers. He basically said, man, Pittsburgh bringing the same guys over and over
for 30
again
years.
For 30 years
Yeah.
on defense. Why? Because there's a culture set and there's specific people that they are looking for. And what happens with Pittsburgh? Damn near they figure it out. They damn near hit every time they go out and get somebody on defense. Why? Because they have a culture built. So they go get those players. You don't have to be an A1 guy, but if you fit our culture, we can work with you. That's what the Titans, they must do this offseason. Whatever that culture is that they're setting, whatever it is, they need to find guys that fit that and not go look for the splash guys.
Willie, we do have a texter who would like to ask you a question. An unnamed texter says, Willie, you can argue it's their first draft, but this is Carthon's second year, and choosing him because you don't know who is next is a lazy excuse to not move forward. Rand has ultimately made this team worse, and you are blaming the roster on someone who hasn't been employed for over 2 years. Your response.
Willie, can I take that one?
I mean, have I not answered that 50 times?
Exactly.
We've gone through the
Okay.
drafts of 2020 through 2022 that were not Rand Carthon's drafts, and that has come up with 0. That's given them no foundational players at all. He inherited all of that. And they did come in. They took the swing on Will Levis, which was a reasonable move that has crashed and burned. But you try. That doesn't mean you're a bad GM when you take a swing and it doesn't work. That's what I don't think people really understand is you need a little bit of good fortune here. And when you all the things that D-Mace just said, I think are really important. How are you going to build a culture if you're changing it after a year and a half? Like Rand Carthon's been there for 2 years, but it was really the Vrabel regime that was the first year, and Chad Brinker was really more on the outside, and you were working into Vrabel's culture. This past year was the first year of this is what we want to try to do.
But people don't want to hear that, Willie.
People,
Willie, people don't want to hear that. That makes too much sense, man. That makes too
right,
much sense.
but
Nobody
they
wants to hear
just think
that.
that anybody else would be better. That's the mentality that I
Yeah,
think
that's what they want to
the
hear.
texter is saying, because they're 3-14, anybody else would be better. And I just think that is very short-sighted.
Again, I think we, at least on this show, I can't talk about other shows, even though they are great. I can't really get into the other shows that we have on this station. They're wonderful. But at least this show, we have been chronicling how they got in this situation. And no matter how many times we tell y'all or tell some of you, you don't hear it. It's like, again, it didn't take them 2 years to get here or a year to get here. And I'm going to say this very slow. It didn't take 2 years for them to get here. It's not going to take 2 years for them to get out of it. I understand the fan base,
Right.
and you have every right to be frustrated. I get that part. But also, you got to understand that when football teams become this bad, this quick, it's not because, oh, it just happened yesterday. When the football team becomes this bad, there was an erosion. Didn't nobody pay attention to, or
Right.
didn't nobody talk about, because what? They were winning some games. And then all of a
Yes,
sudden,
and they had an aging roster. And then how about
Exactly.
this, D-Mace? Here's what we haven't mentioned today. That's got 0 to do with Rand Carthon. A.J. Brown trade. That is a crushing
oh, they don't want to
trade.
put that on anybody.
Crushing
They don't want to put
trade.
it on J-Rob, and they don't want to
No,
put it
but
on Vrabel. They don't want to
Yeah,
do
but-
that. That was
But
the
all people
owner.
see is, since Rand Carthon became GM, the record is 9 and whatever, right? That's the only story people want you to focus on if they're trying to move on. They don't pay attention to all the stuff that we just mentioned. But think about the ramifications only of the A.J. Brown trade. An absolute crippler, right? That is, you can't even quantify how badly that has gone.
Yeah, you
True.
traded a A1 player for a question mark, which means an unknown. It's like, I don't know which. Hopefully, you turn out to be a good player.
Yeah, well, now we know.
Now
the
we
answer
know
to
the
that
answer.
question.
Yes, but you traded a A1 player, a Pro Bowler, a potential All-Pro, for a question mark. That wasn't Rand Carthon, but that move was, and at the time people were saying this, like, that was a bad move. Now all of a sudden people want to forget about it and say, well, he had 2 years to get it together. Well, the guy that they drafted didn't get it. He wasn't he didn't fill the gap or fill the void that was left when y'all traded away a All-Pro guy. So it takes time to get over that. I'm not making an excuse. It's just reality, okay? If you want to say me speaking reality is a excuse, then I will take that. I am making an excuse, but what I am doing is preaching to you reality. This is the reality of the situation. The Tennessee Titans didn't get here just by happenstance. This is and it wasn't all right. Now, what I do fault Rand Carthon for is the right tackle. And we've talked about that. I fought him for that right tackle. He should have known. We need to get somebody. I don't care who it is. We need to go outside. Even if we got to overpay, we need to go get somebody. But you didn't. So, yes, that one is on your hands.
I do have one piece of Titans breaking news to share with all of you. Brian
Oh, my.
Callahan has announced that Will Levis will start
Oh,
on
my goodness.
Sunday against the Texans. Mason Rudolph will also play because earlier in the week, Brian Callahan said the plan is for both quarterbacks to play. But according to Brian Callahan just now, Will Levis will start Sunday's regular season finale against the
able to
Houston
do it.
Texans. Your thoughts?
He's able to do it. Why? Because when the question was asked of him when he benched Will Levis, he never said this was definite. He never said that. That was smart because he knew probably I'm going to have to go back to Will Levis. If it's because of injury or what else, I may have to go back to Will Levis if Mason Rudolph plays horribly.
Willie finds this comical. Willie, your thoughts?
I don't know.
But Willie,
it'll-
you can say he covered his tail because he never said Will Levis wasn't getting back in the game.
I have to ask. I don't know the answer. I do wonder if somebody above Brian Callahan said put him back in.
I think that's
I
what it
do.
was.
I just wonder.
think
I just wonder.
I would truly believe that it wasn't Brian Callahan that said we're going to throw Will Levis back in there. He wasn't.
And how does the team think? What does the team think of that? I don't. I know Mason Rudolph didn't exactly light the world on fire the last couple of weeks, but I do think you're not sitting there wondering when. And it's not like he didn't throw interceptions either, right? But I think you had a little bit of better sense of what the offense was going to look like. I do wonder how the team feels about this move. But hey, if you Will Levis, you can't ever argue.
Also via Teron Davenport.
They didn't give you a chance. Right?
Also via Teron Davenport. If Levis is playing well, this is from Brian Callahan. If Levis is playing well and he's feeling it, I'll let him keep playing.
He was feeling it until he turned it over three straight times.
Here's my conspiracy.
All right.
On this.
And then we got to get to Ask D-May. So let's get your conspiracy.
Here's my conspiracy. Is that because you remember we talked about is Will Levis getting back in the game? And he said the only reason he's going to get back in the game is somebody above him say you getting back in the game. Here's my theory. You walked into there and I said they got to convince Amy of some things and you got to make it seem like it's her idea that it happens. They went in there and they probably convinced her. Let's play Will Levis. Let's do it. He gives us the best opportunity to win, knowing that that's not the case.
Yeah. Now watch, he'll throw 4 touchdown passes in a game that doesn't mean anything.
It's going to be
the
Atlanta game all over again. Yep,
yeah.
That's exactly.
He's going to give us the best shot at winning.
They were wearing the Oilers uniforms when he had the great game against the Falcons.
Yeah, you're right.
Through the 4 touchdowns.
I didn't even realize that. That is true. So the breaking news, according to Brian Callahan, Will Levis will start the Titans' regular season finale against the Houston Texans on Sunday. Mason Rudolph will also play, but Brian Callahan did say if Levis is feeling it, he's staying in there. So what are your thoughts about that quickly? One texter says, watch Will Levis go in and absolutely crush the Texans and ruin our draft.
Right.
That's the Titans
very tight.
nightmare scenario. 615-737-1025. It's time for Ask D-Mace. We'll do that next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingid, 1025-1063 The Game.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D Mace.
We'll welcome you in.
Now, D-Mace. On 102.5 and 106.3, The Game and The Game Nashville app.
D. Mace, Vinkin and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vinkin here with you. Willie Donick is headed to morning skate. The Nashville Predators taking on the Vancouver Canucks tonight. Puck drop at 9, pregame at 8, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I will be filling in for Robbie Stanley on pregame tonight, starting at 8 o'clock. I got to get my super nitro cold brew energy, something or other, because it's going to be a late night for me.
Caffeine,
yes, absolutely. But it is time to ask D Mace. So let's do that now. Let's start with I always hate when this happens. I like that people text in, obviously, but when you text in, it moves people's texts down. All right, here we go. Devin and Dixon says, D Mace, as a former player who played on a team that had Nick Saban as an assistant coach, what is your favorite memory of playing under Nick Saban?
Nick was a head coach at Michigan State. There were a lot of memorable things about Coach Saban. I just, because you got to understand, we had George Perlis, who was, a fixture at Michigan State. They loved him at State. When you thought of Michigan State, you thought of two people, Perlis and Judd Heathcote. Heathcote was the basketball coach, and obviously Perlis was the football coach. And then Perlis gets fired. You bring in a young, vibrant, pea and vinegar type of coach. He comes in and he rearranges everything. This is his place. He comes in his meeting. And one thing I remember, and it wasn't necessarily Nick Saban, but it was a Nick Saban hire, the strength coach, Ken Manning, wonderful person. Ken Manning, God, he's like one of those experts in that realm of weightlifting and programming and all that stuff. Ken Manning came into it, and Ken Manning, if y'all used to watch Beavis and Butthead, right? You remember the sergeant was like, kick me.
Yes.
That guy?
Yes.
That was Ken Manning. Ken Manning walks in the first day. He's yelling and screaming, and he says, fellas, I went in my locker room, and I did number 1 on every wall in this locker room to mark my territory. And everybody was looking at Coach Manning like he was crazy. Well, come to find out, Coach Manning was crazy.
Did he actually do it?
Yes, Coach Manning did that. But Coach Manning was the greatest, man, because he loved his players, but he pushed us extremely hard. Like, I don't think we had been pushed that hard in the prior 2 years. Not to say Coach Manning didn't do what me and Coach Perlis did do, but the weight room staff was a little lax because they had been there for a long time. But Coach Manning came in there and he rearranged everything.
And peed all over it, apparently.
Yeah. And but guys loved him. So that's one of the things that I remember about a Coach Saban-led team, how he brought guys in, pro guys that, knew the program, guys that there was a vision. Everybody bought into the vision. And if you didn't buy into the vision, you were out of there. I seen him run people out of there. My best friend, he didn't want to play no more, because Coach Saban was just, he rode you hard. And he got people out of that program. But then he also loved on those that chose to stay. But he always made it his point, meaning Coach Saban, to be there. Even if he sort of ran you out of the program in a sense, he didn't turn his back. He still allowed you to keep your scholarship, because I know 2 guys that chose not to play, but Coach Saban allowed them to keep their scholarships. So stuff like that Coach Saban did. He talked about, what he did for Muhsin Muhammad. He talks about that all the time. So it's just things like that Coach Saban was able to do. I guarantee you talk to Alabama players now, they will say, hey, listen, Coach Saban was hard, but man, oh man, he was there. He was there for us. He loved on us, and he probably was the best coach a lot of them ever had.
So you're telling me this strength coach peed all over the locker room?
On those walls.
That's a lot of urine, my man.
Hey, man, that was Coach Manning. It's Coach Manning for you.
Oh, man.
Coach Manning. Coach Manning's great.
You couldn't get away with that stuff these days.
I mean, you could.
I mean, you could try.
I think you still do it. I mean, what they going to do to you?
All right. Well, you know what you need to do? Chris Sanders, if you're listening, next football season, I want you to go in your locker room and pee all over the walls and see what happens.
You probably can't do it in high school, but yeah. Beyond that
sounds
maybe.
like
Yes.
there'd be a news story coming out.
Exactly.
That's my point. Jack is from East Nashville, my side of town. Jack, thank you for calling. Go ahead with your question for Derek.
Happy New Year, fellas.
Happy
You as
New
well.
Year.
If you're on one of these teams and your stars get held out, they get the week off, so to speak, saving them for a playoff game. If you're the rest of the guys that got to go on working, hitting the clock, and going right on, does that bug some people? Does everybody buy in? How'd that go over, D-Mace?
Thanks, Jack.
Thank
Good
you,
question.
Jack, for the question. I think it goes over well with guys, with individuals, because here's the deal: is that when guys sit this time of year, it gives other guys opportunity to play. And say that guy is second or third on the depth chart, more so third on the depth chart. Now he gets an opportunity to play, whether it be a wide receiver, quarterback, linebacker, cornerback. He gets an opportunity to play. You don't mind it because you bought into the process. And a part of the process is winning enough games to where you get a first round bye, and that last game you possibly can rest some more of your guys that are banged up. So guys that aren't playing don't look at that as, man, why they don't have to play and we have to play. No, we look at it the other way, because I've been there. I've been the third guy on the depth chart, and guys got taken out of the game because it was like, we were up so many points or we're down so many points. Get in. That's an advantage. That's an opportunity for me as a player. So we enjoy stuff like that, guys that are backups when the starters are not playing, because this gives us an opportunity to show that we've been working hard and we've been preparing, and now our preparation has put us in this position where now we can go out there and play.
Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric, thank you for calling. Let's hear your dad joke and your question for Derek.
Well, the thing is, I had to make sure, guys, in the past I've called with a dad joke, and there were 2 times I got a screen that they said was no. I had to get this one screened, but they said this one's okay. So I hope you like it.
Let's go.
What do you get when you cross an elephant with a rhinoceros?
An elephant with a rhinoceros.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you get?
L, if I know.
Okay. I don't know if my kids would have thought that was funny.
Not
that's
bad.
that's what it's supposed to happen, right?
And that's what
With a dad
kids
joke.
don't
Yes.
think these are funny.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, first of all, about the game Sunday, I had planned to go to the game Sunday. Now with the weather, I don't know, because in fact, I got for Christmas a brand new Titans poncho that my brother gifted me for Christmas, had custom made and everything. I've already people seen it and liked it, asked me questions about it. And a couple people took pictures of it, put on Instagram pages and stuff, guys. So I don't know if I get to wear it because of the weather. But the thing I want to ask you is this: we talked about Titans coaching changes on the staff and all that type of stuff. One obvious change to me that I think has got to happen, does not be shocked, is of course the special teams coach, Coach Anderson, because they've been talked about. Even though it's gotten better over the last few weeks, some people think he will be gone, some think he'll be back. Just want to get your thoughts on that. Was that definitely a change you would make, or do you think over the last weeks he's done enough to save his job? Guys, Happy New Year to you. Y'all take care. We'll talk to you soon.
You as well, Eric. So Colt Anderson, I think, Derek, it certainly seems like the quote-unquote easiest decision to make for the Titans if someone's head is going to roll for this season. I know, as Eric mentioned, the special teams have gotten a little bit better over the past several weeks, but it's reminiscent of the conversation we had about Will Levis, that when he came back into the lineup after he was injured and he was playing solid football, I think we were lulled into a false sense of security, for lack of a better term, because he wasn't playing as poorly as he did at the beginning of the season. And I'm wondering, and you are the expert, but I'm wondering if the special teams is a similar situation because they're not having the huge blunders that special teams unit was having at the beginning of the season. Have they made significant progress? And do you think Colt Anderson survives Black Monday?
Well, Brian Callahan spoke on this. It may have been a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how the special teams unit was improving. And based upon what had been happening in previous weeks, yes, they were improving, and they have improved, somewhat as the season has gone on. But the special teams is just indicative of the roster, man. That's what it is. And I don't know how better to tell people. When your roster isn't good, your special teams is going to suffer. Now, listen, they have one of the best place kickers in the National Football League. You got to get the punter. I think him breaking his leg, I think that really did something to his psyche. Maybe next year is a little bit better, we hope. But I do believe that injury messed with him, and maybe he's just not fully over it just yet. Now, the coverage teams have gotten better, and the return teams, they've gotten better because they've been able to catch the football. That's sad to even say. You got better because you can hold on to the football, not necessarily catch it, but hold on to it. We understand DeQuan Jackson had his issues with not catching the football, but holding on to it, once he got hit. So you look at all that and you say, well, yeah, he has improved, but has he improved enough to keep his job? I'm not sure. The way this season has went, we all know that there has to be a fall guy, a scapegoat somewhere, somehow, because you just can't have a season this bad and everybody come back. There has to be changes somewhere. And it seems like the obvious change would be the special teams coach. But I guarantee you, if this roster gets better, even with Colt Anderson as your special teams coach, they're going to get better. But I don't think they have time to do that. I don't think they have the leeway to keep Colt Anderson again. With the way that the fan base has been going at this team, I don't think they can afford to keep him another year. So he may just as well be the guy that's a sacrificial lamb.
615-737-1025. We've got phones. We've got texts. We will continue the conversation with Ask D Mace. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Finken, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. A little black box bringing us back. Thanks for doing that for me, David James. Although you were asking Derek what he wanted to listen to, and then I said, this is what I want to listen to.
Yeah, I like that.
Even though it's Ask D-Mace. Matt is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Matt, thank you for holding. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Thanks, guys. Long time listener, D-Mace. You were a hell of a player, man. Big fan.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Hey, so question. I'm a absolute college fanatic. I'll eat, live, sleep college football. How if Travis Hunter is sitting there at second, if he's available, how do you pass on a generational talent, guaranteed to be a 10-year starter, wants to play 20 snaps on the offense? And what the hell? I mean, we would get two players for the price of one. And we'd get a receiver that if he lined him up on offense, probably the second would be number two right now as a rookie. How do you pass on a generational talent like Travis Hunter, an absolute no miss for really? I mean, I look at Shedeur, I look at Cam Ward. I don't see it. I mean, I think possibilities that either one of those could be a miss. You get baggage with Shedeur. Cam Ward says, I'm just not going to play the second half. I don't care about what. That speaks volumes.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Okay, you're right about Travis Hunter. I mean, he's the best prospect. Now, will he get drafted number one? I don't know. But if you're just talking about the number one prospect in this year's draft, he is the number one prospect in this year's draft. If you're sitting at number two or possibly even number one, if you're the Titans, if I'm sitting at number one, I'm trading out of it. As much as I love Travis Hunter, somebody else loves him even more, which means I can fleece them for a bunch of picks because I need to build my roster up. So if I got the number one pick and possibly even the number two pick, depending on who's picking number one, I may move out of that number two spot. But if there's not a team willing to pay what it's going to cost to move up to that one or two spots, then yeah, how could you pass up on a Travis Hunter? Because I'm assuming whoever's number one outside of New England, they'll probably end up drafting a quarterback, or they'll try to do what you would try to do, is trade out of it no further than probably 3 or 4 and get a bunch of picks. So, but if I'm 2 or 3, it's hard to pass up Travis Hunter unless somebody's giving you a buttload for him.
What do you mean? We've talked about this a little bit about players playing both sides of the ball at this stage. I mean, in this era of football, do you think that whichever team drafts Travis Hunter, he's going to say, I want to play on both sides of the ball? I remember a few weeks ago, we looked at Deion Sanders. Speaking of Deion Sanders, and we looked at the impact that he had on both sides of the ball. It was negligible. I mean, not negligible. It was minimal. Minimal is the right term. It was minimal. He did do both, but his offensive impact paled in comparison to his defensive impact.
Exactly.
So if you were a coach of the team that drafts Travis Hunter, which side of the ball are you playing him on?
I put him on the defensive side of the ball first, and then design plays, packages for him. I don't want him to play no more than 10, 15 plays on offense. Depending on how the game's going, he possibly could get more on offense. If our defense is getting 3 and outs, then I could put him a little bit more on offense, depending on the package. But listen, this game, people look at Deion Sanders and they just think, he played all these plays on offense. He played all these plays. No, he didn't. His best season, he barely had over 300, close to 400 yards, a couple of touchdowns. And that was, they won a championship with the Cowboys that year, I believe. But he wasn't like this, 30, 35 play guy on offense. He just wasn't. He was more like the 10, maybe 12 plays, but those plays were specific to him and him only.
In 1996, he had 36 receptions for 475 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, so that's basically fourth receiver numbers. That's just what it is. And we believe that Deion Sanders, and he did. He played, whether it be offense or defense, and specialties, he played it at a high level. But he knew he couldn't play 40, 50 snaps of offense and then turn back around and do that many on defense. Now, the NFL has changed. I will say that the NFL has changed. The thing that I hate the most is that these wide receivers coming in and out of the game, they go 3 plays, then they tap their head and they go stand on the sideline. They get a deep ball, they tap their head and go stand on the sideline. It's like, dude, get your butt back in the huddle, all right? Take a deep breath, 2 of them, and then get back out there. But because of the way the NFL is, and they are so just like in tune of, how many plays guys run, the temperature when they're running, the speed, all this, is their nose running? Do they have a headache? They're in tune with all this mechanical stuff that they have on them, all this science, that I think with Travis Hunter, you can do it, but not for a long time. If you are going to do it, you better do it within his first 3 or 4 years. Okay, if you're going to play him a lot on both on offense, do it his first 3 or 4 years. Because after that, really his first 2 years. Because after that, his body will get beat up just because of the nature of the business. His body will get beat up because not only are they going to put him on offense or defense, he's going to play special teams. He's going to be a returner in the National Football League, whether it's punt or kickoff return. Deion Sanders has already said that. He said, man, if I put him at punt return, he would have been an All-American at punt return. But they didn't because they had guys that can do that. So he's going to be another guy that can play special teams, defense, and offense, but just trying to minimize him to the things that he does on the offensive side of the ball. 20 snaps, possibly 15. Now, anywhere from 10 to 15 snaps on offense, great, but you are my primary cornerback and my primary punt returner.
Doug is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Doug, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Happy New Year's, man.
You too.
Yes.
You're talking about bad players and this team not having enough dudes. On the subject of Colt Anderson, he may pack his bags and bounce because there's not enough Popeye spinach around to make dudes for special teams. It wasn't always about him. I'm looking at guys out of zones, out of lanes, not able to tackle. It wasn't all about him. So he could be the foul guy, but he may pack his bags in the middle of the night and say, I'm not going to let y'all tarnish my resume. I'm up out of here.
And
thanks, Doug.
And thank you, Doug. I'm glad you said that, because I think I've said this like months ago. Like, listen, all these problems that they're having on special teams, because people want to talk about the problems, but then they don't want to go back and look at the actual film and what happened. Do it all the time. I guarantee you, I ask anybody on this show, not this show, but on our airways, like, okay, y'all say Colt Anderson needs to be replaced, and I'm not going to fight y'all with that. But outside the punts, and he can't control if a guy holds on to the ball or not. Eventually, they end up benching Jaquan Jackson. But when you watch special teams, it's all about alignment and assignment. I'm going to give you the alignment. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. If you show me those are the things you are capable of doing in practice, then okay, you can be out there. And I'm sure those are the things that they were able to do in practice. But then when you flip on the tape, you see guys doing something other than what they practice. That's not on Colt Anderson. As a coach, I am tasked to go out there and teach you what I want you to know, put you in the best position to succeed. If you show me that in practice, then okay. Now it has to translate to the game. When it doesn't translate in the game enough, then I got to make changes. Colt Anderson made changes, but those changes didn't work because then they were exposed on the other end. Okay, I got to put some more beefier guys up front to block for my kicker because he got his leg broke a year ago and he's got 2 punts blocked this year. Okay, I'm going to do that. But now what happens? Now I am exposed on the coverage end. Why? Because I don't have fast people to get down there to make the returner call for a fair catch. And I don't have the kicker that is going to put enough air underneath the ball to force him to do that. That's not on Colt Anderson. He made the necessary changes that he needed to make. But because this roster isn't where it needs to be, yeah, I can make changes here that may help, but it's going to expose me somewhere else. People, before y'all start talking about Colt Anderson, And I'm not advocating for coach to lose his job or keep his job, but I'm just asking, especially the ones that talk about replacing him. Go watch the tape. Just go watch all of the tape. And I am sure when you come back, you will tell me guys running out of their lane, guys missing tackles, this and that. That's not on Coach Anderson. But if you want to fire him because those guys are doing it, then okay. You're 1 minute we say it's about the Jimmies and the Joes, but then the next minute when the Jimmies and the Joes ain't getting it done, we say, oh, it's about the X's and the O's and it's about the coaching. Which one is it?
Trey is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, quickly, your question for Derek.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good,
Hey,
thank
what's
you.
going on?
Good. Hey, I heard y'all. I heard Adam say that they were switching back to Will Levis,
Correct.
and I want right. And I wanted to ask y'all: do y'all think that's a sign of instability to go back to Will Levis? You already know what he can do. I'm just asking. For me, I think it's a sign of instability from the top to the bottom, and I believe that everybody's gonna be there next year. And they're going to dump everything out on the players. They're going to get rid of the players. And what y'all think? Thank you, and have a good day.
Trey, thank you. That's a good question.
Mhm.
Let's answer that on the other side. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. So Trey, in our previous segment, Ask D-Mace, asked an interesting question. The breaking news within the past 30 minutes or so, Brian Callahan announced that Will Levis will start for the Titans against the Texans on Sunday. The plan is for both quarterbacks to play, but it sounds like if Will Levis is feeling it, he's going to play as long as he still feels it. And who knows how long that could be. If there's one thing we know about Will Levis, it can go from one end to the other just like that. But Will Levis will start on Sunday for the Texans. And Trey's question, Derek, was, is this a sign of instability within the organization that Will Levis, after being benched, is going back into the lineup for the season finale on Sunday? What do you think?
I know I threw out that crazy conspiracy theory. I was all just tongue in cheek about them going in and convincing, her that Will Levis should play. That was all tongue in cheek, people. No, I think this is truly the owner possibly saying, let him finish the season. Let's see what we got. Let him finish the season out, see how it goes, and then let's go from there. I do expect Will Levis on the roster next season. Now, will they be looking to trade him possibly? Yeah, there's a possibility if they get their quarterback or the guy they want. There is a possibility they could trade him, and this could be a part of that package, allowing him to play to see, hopefully he plays well enough, not to win, even though they probably are not thinking that, but, well enough to win, and they still remain 1 or 2, but just play well enough to show you still had trade value. Because right now, if he doesn't play anymore, nobody's trading for him. Nobody's giving you close to what you possibly want, because the last time they seen Will Levis, he didn't look good. So if he comes out and he plays somewhat good football, then okay, he could be a potential trade piece for the Tennessee Titans. But other than that, I don't think there's like any sort of thing going on with upper management as far as them not being on the same page. I just think the owner possibly wants to see Will Levis one more time to make sure what they are deciding to do, they are going to do, whether that is to keep him potentially for trade or not. I think this will give him a somewhat of a sort of like one of those last opportunities for Will Levis in a sense.
Paul in Nashville is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Paul, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you guys kind of just answered my question, but the nuclear option to me for this Sunday is Levis playing and balling out and then being the starter next year. And the objective of the season, which is finding out if Will is the guy or not, which I thought was a question that was answered, gets thrown out the door with this last game. Do you guys see that as a possibility?
Thanks, Paul. Let me answer it first. I don't think one game will change the Titans' opinion on this matter. I think we have more than enough footage of Will Levis. Now, could he be the starting quarterback by default? I guess. I mean, it sounds, I don't know. Let me rephrase this. Let me go back to what they originally said before I tie myself in knots here. I don't think one game will change the organization's opinion. If he has a good game and they win and all of us are sad, or most of us are sad, it is what it is. I can't imagine a scenario where even if Will Levis has the game he had in his NFL debut, that's great for Will Levis. It's good to have it on tape. I don't think one game is going to change the Titans' perspective on this.
It may not. I'm not okay. When you say change, it's not like okay, we don't think Will Levis can be on our team anymore. Oh my goodness, he could be on our team now. I don't think that's the change we're talking about.
It wouldn't shock me if Will Levis was still on this team next year as the clear-cut number 2 quarterback. I think what Paul's question is, which is the Titans fans, most Titans fans, nightmare scenario, is that Will Levis has the game of his life on Sunday, screws up the Titans draft position, and convinces the decision makers that, hey, maybe Will Levis is the guy, despite everything we've seen from Will Levis. I don't think that's possible.
Well, Will Levis is going to try.
He's going to try.
He's going to try.
But I don't think, for what you want to say about this regime, I don't think, even if you have the least, at least if you have the worst possible opinion of Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan, I still think they aren't, for lack of a better term, dumb enough to be convinced that one great game by Will Levis in a meaningless game changes the entire calculus of the quarterback position.
No, you're right. I think this was a top move. This was a put him back in there, let him see what he can do, and kind of go from there. But I think, people underneath they've seen enough, whether it be Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, whoever, they've seen enough. They watch Will Levis every day. They understand that he's not our starter. But the person at the top may not be thinking that way. She may be thinking, oh, no, let me see him one more time and see what it looks like. You can't argue with that. It's the owner, that has nothing to do with the GM or the head coach. That could be the case. I don't know.
It's a good question, but there are a lot of games of interest for Titans fans this weekend. It's not just Titans and Texans, because the number one pick in the NFL draft is on the line. There are 4 teams right now with a 3-13 record. The Tennessee Titans, of course, the New England Patriots, the Cleveland Browns, and the New York Giants. So the order right now in terms of picking in the NFL draft: Patriots 1, Titans 2, Browns 3, Giants 4. And the tiebreaker for determining draft order is strength of schedule, which is the aggregate winning percentage of a team's opponents. So the Patriots have the lowest strength of schedule right now at 467, followed by the Titans at 515, the Browns at 540, and the Giants at 551. So those aren't really going to change significantly. So New England is in, they are in control of it, of their own destiny. If the Patriots lose, it's their pick. That's plain and simple. If they lose, it's their pick. For the Titans to get the number one pick in the draft, they need to lose to the Texans, and the Patriots need to defeat the Buffalo Bills. That's the Titans' route, the easiest route, I should say, to the number one pick. So let's just take a look at the other 3-13 teams that are playing this weekend. The Browns are playing on Saturday. They're at David James's Baltimore Ravens.
At the bank.
The Ravens have something to play for. They can win the AFC North. The Ravens can win the AFC North with a win. So they have something to play for. So they're not going to be resting anybody. The Browns are starting Bailey Zappi at quarterback. You know what the line on this game on the ESPN bet is? Ravens minus 20.
Wow.
Ravens minus 20. So the Browns are going to lose. We don't even need to have this conversation. The Browns are going to lose. So let's just keep that in mind. The Patriots, they host the Bills on Sunday. The plan for the Bills is for Josh Allen to start the game to keep his consecutive start streak intact, which I believe is at 114 games, including the postseason. But once he officially gets the start, Mitch Trubisky is going to be playing quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. There could be other players for the Bills that are rested, like James Cook. Drake May is going to play for the Patriots. Derek, you think the Patriots have a chance in this game when you consider all of those factors?
Yeah, because right now the Buffalo Bills, they have the number 2 seed. So outside of potentially playing Kansas City, they have home field advantage. So I can't see, this team. I don't know how. I think New England can win this game.
And if you're a Titans fan, you are rooting for the Patriots to win this game.
You're rooting for the Patriots to win, because if they win, you lose, you get the number 1
Correct.
Pick. I can't see. Well, I can't see New England losing, but I'm not sure if, having a number one pick for New England is necessary because they already have their quarterback.
But they do need a lot of help.
They need a lot. Now, if they could remain in the top 4, they probably can still sort of, maneuver themselves where they can get a few extra picks. I think once you're outside the top 5 or 6, it's going to be a little bit harder to do that. I think they're going to, just like any other team, I think Gerard Mayo wants to go out there and win. And if you're playing a team.
And he's coaching for his job.
Yeah, he's coaching
there's
for
a
his job
lot
too.
of conjecture that he could be on his way out. So he's coaching for his job. So he's, same sort of thing with Brian Callahan. Basically what we've talked about with Brian Callahan, you could say the same thing for Gerard Mayo.
Yeah, so, but I do look for New England to go out there and play to win the football game. Now, will they ultimately win? I don't know. I think what the Titans got to worry about the Cleveland Browns.
The Browns throw a wrench into all of this because, as we said, they are playing the Ravens, who need to win. David, correct me if I'm wrong. They control their destiny.
They do.
So they don't. The Steelers' result is irrelevant if they win.
Exactly.
If the Ravens win, they win the AFC North. That's a big deal.
Yep.
That's a home playoff game. The Ravens are going guns blazing at the whatever these Browns are with Bailey Zappi at quarterback. So you don't even have to watch that game. The Browns are going to be annihilated.
I will watch it.
Okay.
I mean, David will because he has because he's a Ravens fan. Otherwise, you don't have to.
Here's another scenario that, if New England loses, the Titans, say the Titans win, New England wins, Cleveland loses. Now Cleveland is at the number 1 spot, right? And the Giants win. How far, if Tennessee, if the Titans and New England win, how far down do they drop? If
that's a good question.
The only team that loses is Cleveland. If the Giants win, if I'm not even worried about Jacksonville. So if the Giants win, Jacksonville wins, Carolina wins, those teams win, which they would be out of because they would have 5 wins. But say if the Titans and New England both win, the Giants now jump up to number 1. How far down do the Titans then fall?
So here is a good tweet from, I hope I apologize to Justin if I'm mispronouncing his last name.
Because that could be the scenario.
It's either Graver or Graver. He's at Titans Film Room on Twitter. Good follow. But I apologize to Justin if he's listening if I'm mispronouncing his last name. I know full well what it's like to have your last name mispronounced. If the Titans do pull out a win on Sunday, according to Justin, they will move down 1 spot in the draft order for each of the following results. If the Ravens beat the Browns, which we are expecting,
they go down to 3.
The Eagles beat the Giants.
They go down to 4.
The Colts beat the Jaguars.
They go down to 5.
The Falcons beat the Panthers.
6.
And the Dolphins beat the Jets.
So in theory,
I think the 7th spot is the lowest they can go.
Yeah.
So for example, so you ask how the Giants can get the number 1 pick because they were on their way until they beat the Colts. So the Giants need to lose. They need New England, Tennessee, and Cleveland to win.
Okay.
So that's how the Giants get the number 1 pick back. They need to lose. New England, Tennessee, and Cleveland need to win. So by the way, Tanner McKee is expected to start at quarterback, the Eagles' 3rd string quarterback. Saquon Barkley is not expected to play. I don't think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are expected to play.
That's why I'm like, this Giant, I think the Giants do win. I think the Giants win that game versus Philadelphia.
Which is what you want.
Yeah, which is what you want.
Fan.
Yeah, which is what you want if you're a Titans fan. So the Titans, I don't prescribe losing on purpose, but I mean, losing below them in order for them not to drop too far.
There are multiple teams who have 4-12 records.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Carolina, the Jets, the Raiders, and the Bears.
And they would need all those teams to win if indeed the Titans win.
According to USA Today, none of those 4-12 teams could get to the number 1 pick. Even if all 4 of these teams win, I think meaning the Titans, the Browns, the Giants, and the Patriots. Even if all 4 of these teams win and the Jacksonville Jaguars lose, they'd be number 2 behind New England due to strength of schedule.
Okay.
If I'm reading that correctly. So look, when it comes to your rooting guide for this weekend, other than the easiest thing that you have to do if you want the Titans to have the number 1 pick in the draft,
Lose.
you need to root for the Titans to lose, and you need the Patriots to win. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. But according to that tweet from Justin Graver at Titans Film Room, I'll read it again. If the Titans win on Sunday, they will move down 1 spot in the draft order for each of the following results. The Ravens beat the Browns, which we are expecting. The Eagles beat the Giants, which could be a toss-up, right? Depending on how, what the Eagles decide to do. The Colts beat the Jaguars. Possible. The Falcons beat the Panthers. I would say likely. The Dolphins beat the Jets.
Yeah.
So it appears that the farthest the Titans can fall is 7. And going from the 2nd pick, possibly the 1st pick, to the 7th pick, that can change.
That's a far fall.
That can change the trajectory of a franchise. That's a significant fall.
I think if the Titans want to, if you want to jumpstart this process, just give it a jolt, then you got to remain in one of the top 2 spots, 1 or 2, because those mainly 1, because 1 gives you the flexibility to trade out, but not trade back so far that you still can't get an impact player, and possibly even 2, depending on how far down you go in the draft. Because if you get the number 1 pick, you're going to be moving out the number 1, possibly to a 3rd slot or 4th slot. Then you may gain another 1st round pick or something else here and there to allow you to build your roster up. So to me, it would be, if you want to change this roster, or at least have the ability to change it immediately, then you need one of those top 2 spots. You do.
I feel like we can play, the game they play on Inside the NBA, who he play for. We could do that with the list of backup quarterbacks who are expected to start around the NFL. According to Jeremy Fowler, Bailey Zappi, I already mentioned he plays for Cleveland. Joe Flacco, Indianapolis. Jimmy Garoppolo, plays for the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. Mitch Trubisky, he's in Buffalo. Tyler Huntley, Miami. Josh Dobbs, where the heck is Josh Dobbs? Right? Is he in San Francisco?
I think it's San Francisco.
I think it's San Francisco.
Yeah.
Tanner McKee in Philadelphia. Cooper Rush or Trey Lance in Dallas. Spencer Rattler in New Orleans. Drew Lock with the Giants, Aiden O'Connell with the Raiders, Carson Wentz with the Chiefs, and Mac Jones with the Jaguars. Hey, I won that game. I actually thought it would be harder, but I guess I know my backup quarterback. 615-737-1025. So there's your rooting guide, Titans fans. If you want the number 1 pick, it's as simple as this. Root for the Titans to lose and the Patriots to win. That's as simple as it gets if you want the number 1 pick in the draft. 615-737-1025. I'm going to pose the question to Derek that I've been posing to everybody so far on today's program. What are your expectations for what's considered Black Monday in the NFL? We'll do that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. We will take it to the bank in the next segment to close out the week. Reminder that the Predators are back in action tonight against the Vancouver Canucks on the road. Puck drop at 9, pregame at 8, right here on 102.5, 106.3, The Game. So, Derek, the regular season in the NFL ends on Sunday. Monday is known as Black Monday in the NFL. A lot of people lose their jobs on that day. And a lot of Titans fans are wondering if Rand Carthon could be on that list, if Brian Callahan could be on that list, if Colt Anderson could be on that list. There are a lot of possibilities. And we've heard some reporting around this subject that would suggest that Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, Brian Callahan will all be back next season. We read that blurb from Jeremy Fowler yesterday. Teron Davenport has mentioned it on this station multiple times. Paul Kaharski has mentioned it on this station multiple times. People who would know these sorts of things. So it certainly feels that the Titans are setting us up to bring back the brain trust that a lot of Titans fans want to run out of town. But there is always the possibility with Amy Adams Strunk that she could feel one way today in a completely different way tomorrow. So I'm going to present the question to you.
Mm-hmm.
On Monday, we're on the air at 11 o'clock. When we get on the air on 11 o'clock, or maybe while we're on the air on Monday, what are you expecting from the Titans? Do you see any coaching or management changes of any kind after the season finale on Sunday?
Oh, wow. Part of me thinks no, because the only guy that I can see them possibly changing that has been glaring is Colt Anderson. But I do believe because there hasn't been, these, game-changing plays against them on special teams the last month and a half, I think that may bode well for Colt Anderson, because if you want to fault him for those things that happened at the beginning, you got to give him credit for straightening it out. Now, did he wait too long? There's a possibility he could have in regards to the punt return. And I know some people, well, he didn't change the punt return until after he fumbled. Yeah, I understand it, but from a former punt returner that has fumbled the ball before, they're not going to take you out just because you fumble one time, okay? It's usually, okay, it's repeated, and then after the second time, it's, okay, now we need to change it. It's not, okay, he fumbles one time, and we got to get him out of there. No, because they put you back there because you showed the ability to catch the ball and run with it and have some game-breaking ability. But when you start putting the ball on the ground, that's when we got to sort of go the other way, and they did that. After the second fumble, I believe they end up making the change. But this unit has gotten better from that standpoint, whether it be catching punts, whether it be, covering kicks and punts. They've gotten better since the whole debacle happened. So if you're going to credit him for the stuff that went bad, you also got to credit him for it getting better. Now, you may not want to accept it, and I get it, but it has gotten better. And I think because of that, there is a possibility he could keep this job another year. Listen, this coaching fraternity is very tight, and they're just not casting guys away just because after 1 year. Amy may force them to do that, or she may sort of twist their arm a little bit to do that, but I'm not sure Brian Callahan, that's what he wants to do. I think he wants to have the continuity and come back with the same coaching staff. Because outside of the special teams unit, where are you looking to make moves? I mean, you could say everybody. Okay, if you want to fire everybody. But if you're looking to make individual moves, show me where you need to make the move, because you show me the special teams, I'm going to show you that they've gotten better.
Here is my prediction for what's
I
going
don't
to
know.
happen.
I really don't.
Here's my prediction for what's going to happen on Monday, and I think it might upset some Titans fans. I don't think Rand Carthon is going to lose his job at the end of this season. I trust the reporting of people like Teron and Paul who know these things. I don't think Ran Carthon is going to lose his job. I think that Colt Anderson is an easy sacrificial lamb. Although I hear what you're saying, Derek, that things have gotten better, but they were
right.
They were bad.
Mhm.
Like, so like I said, it reminds me of with what we talked about with Will Levis after he came back from injury. Yeah, it looked better, but we were so turned off by what happened at the beginning of the season that just average quarterback play looks so much better by comparison. And I think that's what we might be seeing with the special teams. So I think Colt Anderson is fired. I'm also wondering about the offensive coordinator. I wonder if Nick Holtz is fired and the Titans bring in an experienced offensive coordinator who can help Brian Callahan with play calling. Because that was the one thing that was interesting to me about this coaching staff entering the season. You had a first-time head coach who had never called plays. You had a first-time OC and a first-time defensive coordinator in Denard Wilson. And I think of all of the major coaches, I think Denard Wilson is the safest. Now, if Brian Callahan loses his job, his coaching staff's probably on the way out too. But I think Denard Wilson, the Titans defense, we've talked about, the yards per game and how that's not an accurate reflection of how good a defense is. But I think you've seen enough good out of the defense, enough that I think he is the safest of those three positions. But I think I'm wondering about Nick Holtz as well. I wonder if the Titans fire him as offensive coordinator and bring in an OC with extensive play calling experience for a younger coaching staff.
If they fire Nick Holtz, that would be the ultimate sort of like scapegoat. That would be even more of a scapegoat than I think Colt Anderson, because you brought him in here not to call plays. You didn't bring Nick Holtz in here to call plays. Those are your duties. And if you end up firing the guy that only has the position by title, yeah, that's a scapegoat move. Because after that, you're next. If you fire your offensive coordinator that doesn't call plays, the next season, if it doesn't come off right, you next. So, but I don't even think they're there. I can't see if they were to fire Nick Holtz. I'm not saying that they won't, but if they were to fire Nick Holtz, I would be totally surprised, because this is the guy that you handpicked and brought with you because you wanted to have that continuity that you had in Cincinnati with you and Zach. You wanted that continuity with you and Nick Holtz because you had been working with him. He was your quarterback's coach at Cincinnati. So if you give him his pink slips, man, that would be a true surprise for me. Again, I think the only guy that really is that really has to be worried is Colt Anderson. But even with that, I think, unlike Will Levis, it did get better, but it got bad like 2 games later. So they end up I think with Colt Anderson, it hadn't gotten bad. It's gotten better. It's not great, but they hadn't regressed back to where they were. So that tells me possibly that they could be looking to bring him back. Now, if they don't bring him back, I think it's a mandate from up above him. Like, listen, you got to do something. Something has to change within your coaching staff. You just can't come back with the same crew. If he comes back with the same crew, that's because what he wanted. If he doesn't, I think it's above him, and they were asking, you need to make some changes.
One texter on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com says, Will Levis is starting because he gives the Titans the best chance to lose. Should he win the game, Amy will fire the GM. If he loses, no one loses their job in management. That's interesting. If he wins, Amy will fire the GM. If he loses, no one loses their job. I would think it'd be the other way around, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, again, I don't know if they win or lose. I don't know if they keep their jobs or not. I don't know if Amy's going to fire them based upon whether they win or lose this game. I think whatever decisions that she's made, she's already made them for the most part. But I don't think, winning or losing dictates whether she's going to fire or retain the GM or the coaching staff. Will Levis gives them the best opportunity to lose. No, I don't think he just beat the team. Wasn't he the one that was quarterbacking this team when they beat Houston? So he would give them the best opportunity to win if you threw him out now that you've thrown him out there. So I don't think he gives them the best opportunity to lose because he's already beaten this team. Again, why are they doing this? Just maybe above their head. That's why I don't think win or lose, she's making her decision based upon that, because I think her decision was play Will Levis and let me see. So if they win, I don't think she's firing anybody. And definitely if they lose, I don't think she's firing anybody, at least not the GM/head coach.
So I can only imagine what the response is going to be on Monday if Ran Carthon, I mean, I don't think the Titans are going to make a statement or release a statement saying that Ran Carthon is coming back. I remember this. I think it was when there were questions about John Hines. This was the year, I think, before he was fired and Andrew Burnett was hired. Because he was under contract. It's like, will the Predators release a statement saying that John Hines is coming back? Well, and I said no, because he's under contract. You don't need to make an announcement that a coach who's under contract is coming back. So I don't anticipate, if Ran Carthon is coming back, that the Titans will release a statement saying Ran Carthon is coming back.
No,
I think nothing will happen. I can only imagine what, as Justin in Greenbrier says on our text line, what if they bring everyone back and everything stays status quo? How well do you all think that is going to fly? It's not going to fly with a lot of people. Trust me. This team is in dire straits. But if that does indeed happen, Ran Carthon, I mean, I know I'm beating a dead horse here. Ran Carthon better get his butt out there and answer every single question that Titans reporters have for him, because even if he comes back, I mean, this Titans team is in a bad way. This season was not fun for any of us. It was not an enjoyable season watching Titans football. We do it because we love football. We do it because it's part of our jobs and because a lot of you love the Titans. But it was not an enjoyable experience watching the Tennessee Titans play football this season. And Ran Carthon has a lot of questions he has to answer. And we may not like the answers, but but he better be out there answering these questions, and how he chooses to answer them is up to him, but he better make himself present because he has a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah, he's going to have to, I would expect for Ran Carthon to be front and center come Monday. But then there's a part of me that says, well, they're going to put Brian Callahan out there and they're going to regroup, and then, everybody's going to come back and do a press conference Wednesday or sometime next week. I think maybe that's how it's going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if it went that way. So Titans fans, be prepared for if this team doesn't have Brinkert and Ran Carthon out there along with Brian Callahan Monday. It may come a couple of days after that, but that's not what the fans want. They want him out there Monday after the game and speaking on his franchise and what is the plan moving forward, because I think one of the only ways they don't talk is that she's firing everybody. I think, because why would you have somebody going to speak to everybody if you're going to fire them subsequently a day or two later or that night? If they don't talk, then I think, okay, she's had it with everybody. I do expect them to talk. Hopefully they do. But the longer it goes without them talking, I think that should be evident that she hasn't made up her mind what she's going to do with this staff.
Do you guys think if both of them are fired, like that's what most people of the fan base wants, do you think if both of them get fired, is Amy Adams going to talk, or is she going to do like she did with Vrabel and go on a podcast?
So a couple of weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago today, actually, because it was when we were out at Fordyce Center, Bellevue, for the coat drive, and Jared was on right after us. and he go back and listen to this. He went to Chat GPT, gave Chat GPT all of the relevant information about the Titans over the past couple of years, and it spit out a statement that was quote unquote written by Amy Adams Strunk. And my God, was it on point? I mean, like, I remember listening to it on the way home, and I said, that sounds like exactly a statement that Amy Adams Strunk would put out. So my answer to David's question is, she will not address reporters. She will put out a statement. And maybe she does an interview with Mike Keith or a team affiliated employee, Jim Wyatt. But I'm going to guess she puts out a statement. I don't think she's answering any questions.
Okay. Brinker, if I recall, and I could be wrong on this one, because there were a lot of people coming in and out when everybody was fired. Brinker came in with Callahan, Carthon, or was he already here?
I think he was already here.
Okay, so let's go into this premise. If he was already here, I don't see her firing everybody. I see her firing everybody underneath Brinker. That's it. Because she needs somebody to go out there and talk if she's going to.
So that would be Carthon, and then probably by extension Callahan. Because if I have this right, Carthon reports to Brinker.
Exactly. So she would fire Carthon, she would fire Callahan and everybody else, but keep Brinker, because now
Brinker would be the spokesperson.
The spokesperson. Yes, that's the only way she doesn't come out and talk. That's why I don't think she's going to fire anybody, because then she would have to. Because we look at the hierarchy as Brinker, Brinker, Rand Carthon, and then Callahan. I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's just the way we think of it.
I believe that's correct.
Then okay, I would say I'm wrong. But Brinker, Rand Carthon, and Callahan. If you fire everybody, who's going to talk? I mean, seriously, like who's going to talk? Because every time this conversation comes up, but we talk about the franchise, we only talk about 3 people: Carthon, Brinker, and Callahan. That's it. We don't talk about the owner because she's not talking. So if you're going to fire this staff, you're firing everybody except Brinker, or you're firing Brinker, keeping Carthon, and firing everybody else, which doesn't make sense to me.
Which would make people think that, he ran things.
Yeah.
615-737-1025. It's going to be incredibly fascinating what happens on Monday. I'm glad we will be on the air. There'll be a lot of stuff for us to react to, not just around here, but across the NFL. But coming up next, it's time to end the week by taking it to the bank. We'll do that next. Derek Mason, Adam Bingham, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace, Finken, and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. It is time to take it to the bank with our friends at F&M Bank. Customer community, F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. Stillman and Company is coming up next at 2 o'clock. Predators, Canucks tonight. Puck drop at 9, pregame at 8. Right here on 1025, 1063 the game. You can join me for pregame tonight. I'm filling in for Robbie Stanley. But it's time to take it to the bank. David Janes, let's start by recapping last week.
All right, boys. So it wasn't a great week for a lot of us. You know, we all had some misses, especially one person who's not here right now. But Adam, you said the Titans would cover against the Jags. That did not happen.
No, it did not.
You said that Ridley would get a touchdown. That did not happen. You said the Packers would Packers over Vikings.
Nope.
That unfortunately did not happen. But you said Arizona State would cover against Texas, and that did happen.
Hot dog.
There, yeah, you
They
got
should
one
have
of those.
won.
They really should have. Now, D-Mace.
So how many points do I get for that?
Yeah, my bad.
You get 1 point.
My B. No, he gets 3 points. He picked Arizona State. He's picked Arizona State to cover.
Arizona State was the
Yeah.
biggest underdog of the weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, give me-
I'll take 3 points. I'll take 3 points.
I give it to you. There's no fussing.
I'll take 3.
Now, D-Mace, you had a better week than all of us. You know, you said that the Preds would win. That did not happen. You said Marshall would get a goal or point. You got a point.
Exactly.
You said Spears anytime touchdown. That did not happen. But you said Chig would get over 5 catches.
And he did.
And he did. He got 5 catches. So you
Yes.
got a total of 5 points.
Okay, wait a minute. Did he say?
I said 5 or more.
Okay.
That's
5
what
or
I
more.
said.
He said 5 or more.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 points for Derek.
So he has 5 total points. He now takes the lead at 90. You have 89.
Okay, right on the doorstep.
So this is a big competition between you two. Now, Willie had a goose egg. I mean, Willie it was not good.
Let's hear it.
Let me find it real quick because it was just that bad. I don't even have it available. He said Titans plus 1.5.
Wrong.
That did not happen. He said Rudolph 2+ touchdown passes.
Wrong.
That did not happen. He only got 1 touchdown. And the Colts minus 7.5 against the Giants.
Oh boy.
That also he deserves a 1 sec.
Thank you.
That was Willie's performance. So and me now going back to me. I wish I had a better performance, but I did get 3 points, and it was because of who was it? Vandy. Vandy won. That's the reason how I got a point.
Pick Vandy.
All right.
And NWI did not get a touchdown, and Boise State got. I said they would win, and they got.
All right. So since Derek is in the lead, Derek, you can make your selections first.
Oh man, the Canucks tonight. I predict Nashville will win.
Okay, that's 1.
And I'm gonna lean on my man Marshall Sold again, and or point or go.
Okay.
We got it.
So
All
a
right.
point from Marshall.
Yep. I got Tennessee to defeat Arkansas, which it's they're
Gonna be an interesting
yeah,
game.
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a good game.
John
got-
Calipari's game, you know.
Yeah, I
Yep.
got them winning, and I got Chaz Lanier scoring over 17 points in this game.
Shout
All
out
right.
Ainsworth.
So those are
Yes,
your 4
that was my
selections
4.
for the week. All right. I'm going back with an oldie but a goodie. Will Levis will throw at least 1 interception against the Houston Texans because he is starting the game. So Will
Automatic
Levis
right there.
going back to the well. I haven't done this in a long time. Levis will throw at least 1 interception against the Houston Texans. The Atlanta Falcons will win the NFC South, which means they have to win. I believe they're playing the Panthers. And the Buccaneers must lose to the New Orleans Saints. I think the Saints are going to be galvanized by what happened in their city earlier this week. So I predict the Bucs will lose, the Falcons will win, and therefore the Falcons will win the NFC South. That's my second pick.
Rise up.
Third pick, an incredible football game on Sunday evening. Lions and Vikings. Listen to these numbers. The winner will clinch the NFC North and the number 1 seed in the conference playoffs, while the loser will be the best team in league history by winning percentage to have failed to win a division. So a lot on the line in this game. Give me the mighty Detroit Lions to defeat the Minnesota Vikings, the Lions will be the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. And finally, the Predators back in action tonight. They also play tomorrow in Calgary. Philip Forsberg, who is in the midst of a 16-game goal drought, will score in one of the next 2 games. So he will break his goal drought either tonight or tomorrow. Those are my 4 picks.
Okay.
Now, Willie has not given me his picks yet, which I'm going to give him grace because it's like we didn't really discuss it.
That is true. That's fine.
So it's on me. That's on me on that one. But so for my picks, I
must get them in by end of day.
Yes, by end of day, by 5 o'clock, I have to get those picks.
All right.
So because that's right before his game starts. So I think, I think that the Grizzlies will beat the Kings tonight. That's one of mine. They're playing, I think, at Sacramento. I think now this is a crazy one. All 3 of these have to happen. I think Mike Evans will get 1,000 yards. I think Lamar Jackson will get his first 4,000 yard and 101K rushing yard season. And also, I would believe it is who am I thinking of? Actually, you know what? It's just gonna be those 2 because I can't remember the other one. And then I think, you know what? Let's screw it. Let's just say the Titans win. I want to say the Titans win. Listen.
Titan fans don't like you right now.
I know they don't. Listen, as a Ravens fan, I have to cause more chaos for these Titans fans. It'd be great to see. I mean, am I wrong? It'd be awesome to see that.
That they win?
Yeah, they win. It'd be great for morale. Great for let's think about it. Great for morale. Next season, it's gonna be better. And those are all my picks.
All righty.
If they win, Titan fans are gonna blame you.
I already can see getting text messages from all my Titan fan friends.
Yeah, like, man, you sure enough picked them to win. They'll be blaming it on you and not us.
I mean, I am in last place, so I mean,
he's going out swinging.
Hey, you might as well.
Now, this is like with silly underdog picks. Obviously, that comes to an end. Does this competition come to an end, or is this something that happens every week?
No, we're going to continue to pick. We haven't cut off a date for silly underdogs.
Well, silly underdogs is done
silly
now.
underdogs done. I'll take it to the bank.
Okay,
we can probably do.
I think it goes.
And by Super Bowl.
Yeah, it goes through the Super Bowl.
Okay, cool. So there's plenty of time still left. So speaking of silly underdog picks, we have 1 game left to determine the ultimate standings.
Go Texas State.
So Derek has 1 bowl game left. I'm surprised they're still playing bowl games.
Am I the only one with a bowl game left?
Yes.
Okay.
Where is this game? When do they play?
That's
they
how
play today. Yeah.
That's how
it's tonight.
It's
okay.
called,
So Derek has North Texas against Texas State in the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl at Gerald J. Ford Stadium in Dallas, Texas. So I don't remember what the line was at the time. So here are the standings. We know that Chris Sanders, he's winning in a route. He won the competition weeks ago. So it's really been a spirited battle for second place. So David James, on behalf of Chase McCabe, picked 2 winners. He picked Arkansas State and he picked Vanderbilt. I missed out on my first pick, which was Louisiana against TCU, which was a big blowout loss, I believe, for Louisiana. But I did correctly predict Illinois to beat South Carolina. So I jumped ahead of Chase. So the standings right now are Chris Sanders, me, Chase McCabe, Derek Mason. So if Derek's pick North Texas wins, he will jump to second place, and the final standings will be Chris, Derek, me, Chase.
Yes.
If Derek loses, it's Chris, me, Chase, Derek. So if Derek loses, he's in last place in this competition.
Let's go Texas State.
Let's go Texas State. Let's do it. I go from last.
Well, you need North Texas.
You need North Texas. You need North Texas.
I'm pulling for Texas State.
Yeah,
you need the mean green of North Texas.
Right now, I am not on the podium stand right now.
No.
But I will be on there after this game.
Look, I will take, if I finish in second place in this competition, I will gladly take that after the start that I had. I had a rough start. I think I lost my first 5 or 6. My first correct prediction was Vanderbilt on the road at Kentucky the week after Vanderbilt upset Alabama.
Didn't everybody get a win with Vandy this year?
I did. Yeah, because I think Chase did. And Chris famously picked them to beat Virginia Tech in the season opener. Vanderbilt was one of the most might have been the most popular underdog pick.
Mhm.
And understandably so. Diego Pavia is the king of the underdogs.
Yeah.
He is the overdog of the underdogs.
He
But
runs Alabama.
that is true. That is true. But that'll do it for us this week. Great week, everybody. We will be back at 11 o'clock on Monday. Very interested to see what happens with the Tennessee Titans this weekend and on Monday. Either way, we will have a lot to discuss on Monday at 11. You can catch the pregame show with Derek Mason, Chris Sanders, and Jared Stillman at 9:30. But Stillman and Company coming up next, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Hey, you can't spell Alabama without a V. Hey, listen, be love on your people. Have a wonderful, blessed, and safe weekend. Peace.